I'm Dr. Beth Molleson.
And I'm Dr. Alyssa Watson.
Thank you for joining us in the Veterinary Breakroom today, where we have short conversations where we just chat informally about relevant topics in veterinary medicine. And today is kind of what I like to call keep you in the know topic, Alyssa. So what we're going to talk about today is some new vet schools that are coming. And I was kind of inspired to talk about this because, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I always feel like people in other like non-vet professions will say things like, oh, what do you think about the new vet school open? Things where I have no idea. And I'm like, oh, I wish I did know about these things or feel like I should stay current. And this is one of those topics. I just like to stay in the know on what's happening out there with veterinary education because, we're always out there. It's a small profession. I feel like you got to keep up with the times. So yep. That's what we're going to talk about today. Go ahead, Alyssa.
I was going to say, I feel like not only is it a small profession, but this particular topic, I feel like there has been this like blitz of veterinary schools opening up, in the last 10 years. And so I agree with you. People are like, well, what do you think about this new vet school? And I'm going, another one? So sorry, go right
so
ahead.
We're going to keep you in the know. No, I'm glad you agree with me. And Alyssa, I'm going to give you a quick quiz. I'm sure you're thrilled about that. But as I was kind of looking through what our current stats on vet schools in the country were, there were a few things that took me by surprise, probably because I honestly had never given my attention to learning about the specifics of the vet schools in this country necessarily. But I want you to guess, how many states do you think, or do you know, have more than one vet school? And what states can you name? No pressure.
No pressure. All right. Okay. So states that have more than one school. Okay. Arizona. I know Arizona has 2 schools.
Yes.
But I don't
very good.
Think they have no. But I don't think they have teaching hospitals. I think there's 2 schools, but I don't think they have teaching hospitals. And who else has 2
I think
schools?
You're probably right.
Yeah. Alabama, because they have Auburn.
Yes.
And they have Tuskegee.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
very
Alabama. Good. I got nothing. There's more?
Okay, that's perfectly fine. I honestly think I would have said 0 because my brain just doesn't work like that. And I've never thought about it. But there are 6. So Alabama, Arizona, California
6?
has University of California. And 6 states, yeah, and Western University. New York
and
has
Western in California.
Yeah. New York, Tennessee, and Texas. And so, yeah, we'll get into this, but I feel like sometimes some of the lesser known vet schools, at least from my, what I consider well-known vet schools, is because they don't always have a teaching hospital associated with them. And therefore I feel like you don't hear as much about them. But yeah, there are currently, I think 32 or 33 accredited schools right now. And Alyssa, tell us how many you said there were when you graduated, just to give us an idea of how quickly
when I graduated when I graduated, there were 26 accredited schools when I graduated in 2003. And yeah, I think 32, but you might be right. Maybe there's 33 now. And so, yeah, that's something that, so, when you said lesser known schools, to me, it's because they didn't exist when I graduated and everything like stopped for me in the mid 90s. Like I still live there.
That makes sense. I mean, yes, same. I understand that.
No, I graduated in 2003. And I did go back and look at some of the history because, when talking about new schools, I kind of wanted to look into the history. And I did know this because Iowa State is very, very proud of it. But Iowa State, which is where I went to school, is actually kind of it was the vet school at Iowa State, their veterinary medicine program was officially founded in 1879. And while they weren't like the first veterinary school, because there were other schools, that were like private colleges in the late 1800s and early 1900s, a lot of those programs have not continued. They all, shut down. There were something like over 40 private
Interesting.
veterinary schools that operated, around the turn of the century there. Yeah, it was really interesting, that no longer have programs. But Iowa State has, they had the first state veterinary college. Iowa State is a land grant university. And so the first state veterinary college, and it remains the longest continuing operating, college of veterinary medicine in the country. So go Cyclones. We're really proud of that.
That's yeah, that's interesting. I just, as you were talking, I went to Ohio State, so Ohio's been around for some time. I had to look and see. Ohio State was officially renamed the College of Veterinary Medicine, the like agriculture portion in 1897. So we weren't too far behind you. But yeah, anyway, this is all fascinating stuff. I feel like for some reason I'm always curious about this. And of course, as we talk about these vet schools that are cropping up in the last 20 years and in the upcoming 5 years, like I'll talk about here, a lot of that has to do with the fact that there is a projected veterinary or current and projected veterinary shortage. And we don't need to get into that too much. And I know there are different ways of looking at that and what a vet shortage means. And so sometimes that can become, different opinions on the topic and exactly what that means. But just to state a few statistics that I thought were interesting, it says, with pet ownership steadily on the rise, a 33% increase in pet healthcare service spending is expected over the next 10 years. So of course, I'm getting to the point that that is one of the motivators behind increasing these vet schools, is this vet shortage. Nearly 41,000 additional vets will be needed to meet the needs of just companion animals by 2030. Even with new veterinary graduates that are expected over the next 10 years, there's still going to be a shortage of nearly 15,000 vets that will likely exist by 2030. And it would take more than 30 years of graduates to meet the 10-year industry need for credentialed veterinary technicians. So it's not just a vet issue, of course, it's the support staff as well. So of course, that is a lot of what is inspiring these vet schools to crop up. And there are currently 5 states without schools. So again, there are 28 states that have those 33 vet schools are currently in 28 states. So 5 of those states that don't have vet schools now have schools in the works. And so some of that is actually, sometimes it's a university inspired initiative. In some cases, it has been more of a state inspired initiative where the crisis is already there. And that is what is driving the need or the desire to open a vet school. So currently there's Rowan University in New Jersey that is expected to open in 2025. There is Clemson University. Is that in South Carolina? I'm going to be embarrassed if I say the wrong Carolina. Am I right, Alyssa?
I don't know where Clemson is.
Oh God, let the hate mail roll in. No, I think it's in South Carolina. We're gonna. That's all right. We're.
Are we Googling right now?
I'll Google right now.
Clemson
I'll let
Tigers.
you Google right now. Yeah, Clemson Tigers. They're aiming for 2026. Arkansas actually has 2 in the works. So one at Arkansas State and one at a private college, Lyon College, one in Utah and one in West Virginia. So an interesting thing to note, which again, Alyssa, when we were talking, you seem to be more in the know of this than I did, but there is a distinction again between colleges that have a veterinary teaching hospital associated with them, and then those that have a distributive model of education. And there's kind of a mix of these 5 schools that are planning to, or 5 states that are planning to open vet schools. There is a mix. A few of these, like Rowan University, I know stated that they will have a teaching hospital. But Alyssa, do you mind for our audience to get into that a little bit and kind of the difference there?
Yeah, sure. So this is something that, when some of these newer schools were opening, was kind of a big deal at the time, that these schools were moving more towards this distributive model of education, where they don't have a teaching hospital affiliated with the college, and instead, for your senior year clinical rotations, you are sent out into the community in order to do kind of almost like externships, I mean, I guess that's what you would call them, anywhere from a couple weeks,
Mm-hmm.
to a month or 6 weeks, in practices out in the community. And how, I think one of the things that's really interesting to me is, because these are a little bit newer, I would be very interested to see data on how those graduates do out in practice. And this is something that I've looked for before and haven't been able to find, compared to a more traditional model, if that's what you want to call it, where you have a teaching hospital, you go through a rotation, you've got your small animal ICU rotation, you've got your equine ambulatory rotation. Trying to think of all the rotations I went through when I was in school. So so I think people are very, I personally have seen people feel very strongly about the value of their education, of whichever one they experienced. So I have seen,
Mm-hmm.
veterinarians on groups, Facebook groups, things like that, that are very passionate about the distributive model, and, that they loved it, and they say that that their learning was, that it was very enriching to be out in the community, and they felt like they got the same education as somebody who went through a more traditional uh, uh, teaching approach. So, have you had seen data about it, or had any conversations about that?
No, I haven't. I've kind of seen similar things to you, where just anecdotally you find that people tend to be passionate about maybe what they've experienced, which I guess is a good thing. It means you found value in what what choice you had made. I have seen, pros and cons, of course, listed on both sides. But of course, I think there are people that do have concerns that, is this a validated enough method of veterinary education, that distributive model that's relatively new? Are there repercussions that haven't been identified of not having that teaching hospital experience, or whatever the case may be? I think on the flip side, there are some people that argue that maybe costs of education, veterinary education, could be kept down. As we all know, that's currently a huge barrier and issue in the industry. Could costs be kept down if there was a distributive model? And not necessarily yes, but potentially. And then I know in academia right now, and specialty hospitals everywhere as well, but particularly academia, there's difficulty in hiring. So when I think of these new veterinary hospitals that are opening, or these new teaching hospitals that are opening, it's also concerning to think, they have to go on a dean search. They have to um, find specialists to work in all of those specialty areas of the clinic. So, uh, I think there's just a lot of challenges no matter how you slice it. So it will be interesting to see, statistically, whether opening these new vet schools, how big of an impact that really makes on kind of the veterinary shortage that we're facing. But yeah, it's interesting to think about. And like I said, I had never, as a student, given this much thought, and then after school, yeah, kind of stopped paying attention at at some point.
Well, I was really encouraged that, at least a few of these um, projected schools are planning on building a teaching hospital, because, and again, it might be personal bias, because that's the way I was taught and that was my experience. But I think that there's a lot of value in having a teaching hospital. On the flip side of that, you bring up a very good point about cost of education. It's something that really worries me about the profession moving forward, that we need to get cost of education under control in order to stabilize this profession, in the future. And so if this is one way to do it, also, I think I think there can be advantages to getting out of the university and that kind of ivory tower teaching hospital mentality and out into the community and seeing how things really happen every day, because they can be vastly different.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe a future episode, Alyssa, we can interview someone who has experienced the distributive model, because I feel like I have a lot of questions, and yeah, would love to be able to dive in deeper. And it's hard to compare the two because everybody, of course, only experienced one or the other. But
Right.
anyway, all very interesting. Like I said, we just wanted to keep our audience in the know so you can seem educated at your next veterinary cocktail party with all of these fun statistics. And Alyssa, I think that brings us to our win of the week segment. Do you have any big or little wins this week?
Well, given the fact that we were talking about vet schools, my win of the week is actually, recently it was my 20-year anniversary for graduation. So, and we have been planning a reunion. I have not been back to Ames in a number of years. And so I'm excited, been doing some Google Meets with classmates and getting ready to, go back, and I'll keep you guys updated because we're having this reunion later this year.
Are you helping organize?
I am not, because I am so far away. And so I didn't feel like I could contribute very much.
That's perfectly understandable. That sounds amazing. I hope my class does that at our 20-year too. Our 10-year was during COVID. So yeah, I have not seen too many classmates. I have a friend that works at Ohio State, which helps because I'm up there a fair amount. But anyway, that will be very fun, Alyssa. I like that one. Very appropriate for our topic today. My win is going to be, I'm going to circle back to what, if anybody listens to this on a regular basis, they've heard me talk about or may know I got a new dog a few months ago. So I'm going to tie my win back to him. I'm trying to be very optimistic about him. I feel like I'm one of those people, and I knew this going in, that like regrets getting a new dog for several months. And I have been that way with every dog I've ever gotten. So that's the period I've been living through. But I want to be optimistic and say that we are actually doing pretty well. And what my actual win was going to be is that I met with a veterinary behaviorist this week who was so kind and helpful and let me ask all of my questions. Our biggest issues are surrounding the integration of Paul, my dachshund, with Daniel, the poodle, and integrating the two of them. And I won't get into the details of their complex they're both complex little creatures, their complex relationship. But anyway, the veterinary behaviorist was wonderful. And it just made me think about, how awesome it is that they exist and what a wonderful resource they are. And speaking of vet shortages, of course, she was kind enough to talk to me, but there's such a long wait to see these veterinary behaviorists. So anyway, I think I inadvertently turned my win into a negative there, but anyway, it's a great resource to have for us and our clients out there. So that's my big win, is getting some support on this inter-household dog relationship issue that we have going on over here.
I'm glad that you were able to find, a colleague out there to help you. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Hope you guys are excited about the upcoming, veterinary schools that'll be opening up, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Veterinary Breakroom. If you enjoyed today's episode, you can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, including a video version on YouTube. While you're there, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. You can also listen to or watch our podcast episodes on our website at cliniciansbrief.com/podcasts, or drop us a line at podcasts@briefmedia.com. Veterinary Breakroom is a Vet Medics production, produced by Alexis Ussery and co-hosted by Dr. Alyssa Watson and Dr. Beth Molleson.